The wait is over. I finally finished my Swamp Thing figure. Let's talk about him. He's custom. Boom. Here he is, finally. I've been trying to build my own action figure since probably 1989, since Batman 89 came out. 5 points of articulation, and he is based on the 1970s Bernie Wrightson style Swamp Thing, classic Swamp Thing. More or less, basically, I was inspired by the movie Swamp Thing. Loved that movie when I was a little kid. I even tried to make a Swamp Thing out of pipe cleaners. Don't have that figure anymore. Wish I still did. But just to recap, if you didn't see part 1 or 2, it's made out of a buck. I've been experimenting with making action figure bucks for probably the last 2 years, and this is what it looks like all underneath. This isn't a figure, you know, I sculpted on top of, like my first figure I did where it was a dollar store figure, and I put Apoxie sculpt clay on it. And no, this is, I wanted to do one completely original, and I made it with green stuff, which is, when it cures, it's kind of like a hard rubber, and I made mine so I can snap them together. And I made the little pegs myself out of styrene, and I made molds out of them, which is the only good thing I've been able to make out of molds. I've not glued him together because I would like to make a mold out of him, make, you know, more, sell them on eBay, make zillions and zillions of dollars, but that's not going to happen. I used my Tamiya semi-gloss, which I wish I used flat gloss. I think he's a little too shiny. I might touch him up later. And I do pretty good on stuff like that, because here's my earlier Superstar Billy Graham, and he was done with flat gloss, and I just rubbed him on my sleeve to get like that kind of fake rubbery plastic look, and I think that was a little bit more successful on this, even though this figure is supposed to mimic rubber, because it's supposed to be a bendy figure from the 80s in LJN. And this one's supposed to be like a Kenner style action figure. Because look how good he fits in with my Star Wars figs. Pretty good. And also a real Mego Pocket Heroes. Or just hanging out with Mork from Ork. Awesome. Let's get a good closer look at him. There he is from the front. There he is from the back. And I'll show you the comic I actually used for reference. Here's the comic book I used for reference. Swamp Thing, Annual Number 1. This is the movie adaptation. And basically why I love Swamp Thing. I had this comic book since 1982. It was one of the first comic books I ever got. What 5-year-old kid wouldn't want that comic book just based on the cover? And I saw the movie was already on HBO, I think, by that point. This isn't drawn by Bernie Wrightson, but, you know, like that shot right there, that's a definite inspiration, and that's a great shot. I use that for inspiration, how to get the veins, how many to put on. I experimented a lot with them. I spent probably 2 good weeks just like rearranging where to put the veins, put them on his shoulders, how many, too many, just a few on his legs, a few on his back. These were like heavily debated. And doing his eyes, I had to do them red. That is a wash. First, when I bought like a $9 bottle of that Citadel paint. These were like the $5 ones. I got an even better one because I just loved the shade of red, and I knew I was only going to use it for his eyes. I was going to say, well, I'll save it for. I'm also working on a Flash figure also, but I was like, oh, that's perfect for the Flash. But I used that, did 2 little dots, and then it completely covered up the detail. I washed it off, and it got into the little eye pupils. The first time I ever sculpted real eyes like that, and I thought they came out great because it's got pink and then deep red on the inside. There's his arms moving, his head's moving. Like I said before, I didn't glue them together but he holds together. He snaps together pretty good. Painting them also took forever because I was trying to figure out what shade of green to actually use them. I wanted it close to the comic book, and also was trying to think, I was like, well, what colors would they have used in the early 80s if this figure actually came out in the early 80s? And there's one figure that was like olive drab that I thought of, and I tried to match the colors completely, was G.I. Joe Zap. Mine is like super mint condition. Look, I only paid $9 for that. That's probably like a $100 figure now. And I think I matched the colors pretty good. I bought this Citadel paint, which I'm moving up from the Walmart paints that are cost $1, just because I didn't want to sit around having to mix something. And I got another one. I actually did mix because I thought this was too dark, and I mixed this with some Walmart paint to get the right shade to try and match Zap as close as possible. Weird little Easter egg there, but I am completely happy with this figure. My gap work on his sides didn't come out quite perfectly, but this was made, the torso was made out of scraps anyway from my earlier experiments making a buck. This is the first one I made, which I just want to make something that was articulated. And this was the second one. This one I've perfected it, even though this is a figure this is probably going to be Iron Man, but I have my little snap system where I make cutout there. You can see this in the earlier videos, and he snaps together, holds them together. This was an earlier version that wasn't perfected yet, and I was like, well, I still want to make another figure, and I'll just give him you know, do like a rough draft of a figure, and the face came out better than I expected, so I just kept on going from there. Meanwhile, I've been distracted on completely other figures. Here's an update to figure from the last video, my Indiana Jones. This is the Kenner Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark figure. I wanted to do Temple of Doom. Criteria was it had to be the same articulation with the weird legs that spread out like that, and I needed knees. This one's taken me forever. I cannot get the face right, and I keep sanding it off, doing it again, doing it over again. And hands, I wanted them to actually hold stuff, so I'm gonna probably cut his hands off and redo them with green stuff because it dries kind of flexible. And I already started making weapons for him to hold. Here's his machete, and here's a rough draft of a revolver, and I'm gonna try and make that so he can hold that. That's a figure coming in the future. And I still haven't given up on Mego comic action style figures or pocket hero figures. I've made molds of Batman, and here's all the pieces I've made in various forms of success. I think I got enough pieces here to, even though the molds didn't come out good, I can probably piece something together into a figure. So that might be a 1989 Batman. So this is just a tease. This is a tease video. That's not coming anytime soon. And when I was sculpting, I didn't want to just jump in to do another figure exactly like Swamp Thing with one of these bucks. This is a Robin comic action figure. Yeah, that's what I sculpted so far. I'm trying to mimic the whole look right there, and like you see that symbol on him, this is probably going to be the Flash. I say probably going to be the Flash because I want to, once I finish sculpting this, perfecting it, I would like to make molds of it just to be a body buck and hopefully just produce some, you know, blank arms, legs, stuff like that, generic arms, and then sculpt on, you know, gloves or boots or different face, and just make as many figures as I want. And I purposely sculpted his wrist in that unfortunate position, like right there, like the original. I thought that would be, it's my tribute. Probably nobody else on YouTube who loves comic action heroes as much as I do. And this is probably proof because I sculpted one. And that's my upcoming. So I got 3 projects. I got comic action figure, Buck. I got my bag full of Batman parts. And we still got Indiana Jones to try and complete. So that's the 3 projects I'm working on, and I'm glad I finally, that's why it took me so long to finish Swamp Thing. Yeah, I like Swamp Thing, but he's probably my 8th or 9th favorite DC character, and should have probably went with a heavy hitter first, like Batman. Here's a gallery of all my custom figures here. Started off kind of humbly with a Venom figure made out of a dollar store figure. Then we did the Punisher off another dollar store figure, and the paint job got progressively better. I could not do the Venom symbol to save my life. Punisher one, I did that by hand, but I also painted him with spray paint. That was a pain in the butt and a mistake. Then we moved on to an LJN style Superstar Billy Graham figure, and did it with a classic old school PVC style Smurf. That's also made out of epoxy sculpt. This is all epoxy sculpt. And now we finally got my first articulated figure, Swamp Thing. But I'm more than thrilled the way he finished out, and that's my first real articulated action figure I made from scratch, and the journey is complete. Now all we gotta do is make better and better and better figures. So thanks for watching, like, subscribe. I'll try and wow you and do something in the future.